Hi everyone, I'm Morg and I make minis in HeroForge. This week we are going to have another intermission and we are going to talk about minis related to the Lionsheart guild. I guess the best way to describe Lionsheart guild for me would be to say that it's my fantasy land. It kind of grew up from a lot of bad things that happened in my life, and its growth was also affected by things getting worse and worse. The reason why I started this channel in the first place was because um, I was working in a corporate hell, and my last job was the absolute worst. I I wanted it to like work for me and I wanted it to be like a thing for me, that job at that corporation, something that I could just finally stay with, like stop jumping from one job to another and just try to be happy. But the way things were handled by that corporation and stuff, it's it really messed me up. To the point where I was under so much stress that I had like physical issues on my body, and it also just like this entire stress from the job. It's fed to my depression that I've had for, I guess, since I was a teenager. Um, I'm pretty much like or I was like a clinically depressed person. I kind of remember when I was a teen, I used to do these depression tests, and you know, I gotta be the best in everything. So, I also had like the best results in that. I'm not gonna go into the detail of why the things happened the way they happened, or why they shaped me into who I am today. I'm just saying that that job experience that I've had, it made me for the first time actually like seek out psychiatric help. And um think for the past year or something like that, I've been unemployed and I've undergone like a depression treatment. And this channel was in part a way for me to challenge myself and to get out of my comfort zone while I was doing the treatment, so that I don't stagnate. And the reason why it was why this is like HeroForge for me was when I was starting the treatment, it was really tough, and I felt like the only thing that could calm me down properly was working on minis. And I also just started like a online D&D party back then, and I just wanted to make like minis for other people, and I just kind of noticed that I was pretty good at what I was doing. So I didn't want to share my minis just like just with my party members. I wanted to share them with the world. A few days ago, I finally finished the depression treatment, and I guess I want to talk a little bit about things, how they were before and how they are after the treatment. Mostly because whenever somebody says that they're depressed, it just means like, oh, that sucks, you know? I hope things get better. Like, how do you reply to somebody that is depressed? I'm not really sure, to be honest. I don't know what I would say. I guess, I guess, I guess I would say, have you seeked psychiatric help? Is what I would say today. But I mostly want to talk about this because people don't really talk about how the depression affects them. You know, like for a lot of people, it's just something that they can't really imagine or grasp properly. So let's talk about this briefly. Before I started treatment, I was pretty much on a daily basis, fantasizing about um, self mutilation, you know? And I think I was romanticizing that idea. Luckily, after the treatment, I don't really get a lot of these thoughts, or when I try to think about these thoughts, they just feel a lot more distant, you know, rather than something that is directly in front of me. It kind of feels like a memory that is far away from me. Another way I was before the treatment was that I didn't enjoy eating food or tasting the food. I was pretty much just eating for the sake of survival. I was just like putting it inside of my mouth, and that's about it, you know? I couldn't get really excited about an idea of a food, I guess. I mean, I guess other than sweets. Other than sweets. So after the treatment, I actually am able to enjoy food. That's pretty neat, I guess. One weird thing about depression was my color perception. My color perception kind of changed with the treatment. Back then, I wasn't really able to feel colors. All of them were just kind of feeling faded. And I was wondering, like, I thought it was like kind of weird, but I had like this sort of a filter on things where everything was feeling so faded. And back during my super depression days, I had a strong suspicion that it was like the filter in my glasses that made things faded, but no, it wasn't. As it turns out, I was just clinically depressed. And yeah, like right now, when I just look at a color, I can like feel its vibrancy and its intensity, and kind of like also the colors intense. Like I'm able to feel joy from color. Suppose another thing was kind of a need for like validation and stuff from other people, because I just couldn't grasp the idea that, you know, I was just worth it just for being myself as I am. And I didn't really have to like show my worth to other people. And also, in part, um, I was also pretty like emotionally overreactive to things, I guess. Like right now, it feels like I have much better control over my emotions, and it was also just partially because building the channel like helped me. Like the challenges of building the channel kind of helped me with regulating that as well. I'm talking about depression here because depression was kind of what gave the gave the birth to the Lionsheart guild. I don't really want to dive deeper to not to make the video more depressive. But yeah, today we're gonna be talking about some Lionsheart guild minis. It's a terrible, terrible world, you know. And we're going to dive into my terrible, terrible fantasy world. It's just a bunch of minis, but I'm not gonna make hype videos for like happy videos for, so yeah, because they are not particularly complex, you know. So I guess we are starting with Grant here. The special thing about Grant is that he is a guy. He's a guy with a sword, you know? In a fantasy world, this man has a solution to every problem with a sword. I don't really have much else to talk about this guy. I mean, he's just a guy. I think I would have done like a better job with the face and stuff, but if I were to like rework him, because I think I could do like a better job. But yeah, he is a guy. I kind of imagine that scene that like somebody threw an apple at him, or like the apple just kind of rolled over to him loudly, and he's like, hey, you got a problem?" And he's like, "Do you want me to throw this at you?" Just shows like a random potion bottle. I did say originally that Iseris, but we're not gonna like talk about the guy, but I still feel like he's got like some pretty good design decisions in my opinion. So I want to show you some of the fun details. So one detail that Iseris has are the fire runes that he has on his hands. They're very hard to spot, you know? There's one here, and there is one here. And I really enjoy how I made these. It's essentially kind of like a swap of like highlights and shadows, more or less. So the dark color that was like highlight was swapped to shadow and vice versa, and that's what was able to create like this sort of a nice effect. I do wonder if you actually noticed this stuff right here, because this stuff is not like it's not part of the chest piece. It's actually just like kit bashed in. And the reason why I kit bashed this over the original model was because this stuff over this stuff here is because of this sort of an effect, like this geometry that looks completely broken. You know, so I kind of had to like fix it myself so that it looks much better. I also like this cute thingy that I put for Iseris, and it's like a butterfly. When you look at it like closely, it looks really derpy. It's essentially like a, I think this is like a knot from like a bomb. I think it is like from like a bomb, and attached on it are just some butterfly wings. And I really wish like HeroForge had like butterflies as like familiars you could put somewhere. Or the other day I was not looking for a butterfly, but I was looking for a dragonfly, and I couldn't find a dragonfly either. But HeroForge does have like butterfly wings and dragonfly wings. So technically speaking, you are able to kit bash it. It just looks somewhat derpy, or it costs, or it may cost like too much kit bashing to actually do this. And I kind of like put this butterfly here as a gentle contrast to whatever was happening at the base, which with like mods and stuff. So Iseris is supposed to be like a bad guy. He's supposed to be he's a seer, and he's supposed to be like being he kind of has the ability to see the future. And I just wanted to give him like this beautiful dress, this which almost looks like a white shield, and just he kind of like views himself as somebody who is doing the right thing. There's a saying that goes, a path to hell is paved with good intentions. And I think this is pretty much the character. Like, he does terrible things, and he justifies it that he does it for the sake of good. I also really like the color scheme. The color scheme is very specific. And the reason why I kind of went like with this sort of a color scheme is to just give you the vibe that we are kind of like desert themed, but also the colors are not as bright, because I wanted the first thing when you look at Iseris was to see his eyes, you know? And when I was trying like different colors on him, I didn't have that effect. For example, here I was like trying out like these rich blue colors, but that was kind of the issue with the rich blue colors, is that those colors looked too good. In fact, like they took like your entire attention. So when I looked at the model, the first thing I saw were these like bright blue colors, not his eyes. That was kind of the main issue. And we have the same sort of a thing here as well. I was trying out these purplish rich colors, but again, like when you look at the model, what you actually see is the purple color. It's not the eyes that you see. So when we compare it to the main model, when you look at Iseris, the first thing that you see are the eyes. And he is supposed to be like a sort of a person that is able to see through people and through their intentions. Another thing that I added to this model was actually like this part here and this part here. And I added them here because you can kind of see that this stuff, I didn't like how this looked here, and I didn't like how this looked here. So I just quickly put like some stuff to cover it up, and I think it just really helps that transition. And I also improved the transition between the hood and the cape by putting in some rings. And yeah, this is what it looks like without the rings. You can kind of see that this is part of the cape, and like that's kind of how it connects. And I think it just looks so much better with that one ring. I also really like how I did this. So this is actually like two cloth pieces. So this is one, this is the second one, and it is like joined by this. I had to like put this here because the cloak was clipping through here together with the chest piece. Yeah, and so like to tie these two things together, because of this clipping, I just covered it up. And then I connected it with this, which is supposed to be a kind of a brooch. That's honestly it about Iseris, you know. I told you it's gonna be quick minis. I really like how Iseris turned out. And then we have Radragan, who Radragan is kind of supposed to be a very masculine sort of a character. He's kind of like an arena fighter, you know? And yeah, he's got nipples there. The hair in the armpits was done with like uh with goatees. Goatees are pretty good for like making like um armpits hair or like any hair, for example, like here. But yeah, like the way I do nipples in HeroForge is I just take like cigars and then I plonk them inside the character model, and I put like some target decal on top of it, and you know that's a nipple. This here is kind of supposed to be like a belly button, but it doesn't look great in my opinion. Now that I'm looking at it, I should probably fix it, honestly. I don't know if that looks better, but I decided to put a belly button there. And I really enjoy how I added this sort of a stuff here. You know, like the legs that I actually use, they're like uh space themed legs, but like I kind of changed them into like fantasy themed legs, you know, with together with this and like this cloth, which is also kid vash. And I kind of imagine like the culture where Radragan comes from. It's pretty much like a warrior culture sort of a thing, where people like put paints on themselves. So, you know, it's also just kind of shown here. Oh, and the thing about Radragan is that he's kind of immortal, kind of. So yeah, I kind of like decided to jab a dagger and to show that. And pretty fun fact here. Back in the day, I just didn't know how to make it so that a nipple doesn't show on his back. So the way I decided to do it was just like cover it up with blood and stick a dagger inside of him. And like, don't get me wrong, like I know this would like kill most people because it goes directly into the lung, you know, so probably is going to collapse after this performance. Oh, I guess we should also talk about the decapitated head. So it's kit bashed, of course, kind of. So when we take a look at this is kit bashed, and this is kind of kit bashed as well. And I'm using like a different sort of a hair here. This is fake. And this guy right here is just like a second model that was essentially added. But like the way you can kind of do like this sort of a decapitation stuff, if we take this out, nope. Moral panic. Yeah. So if I like turn this around, you can see here the body. That's his body. But what I did with the body is that I just made it as small as possible, and then I kind of like tucked it inside the head. I hope that kind of makes sense. Well, this looks cursed because you can't really like add just heads in HeroForge. It's kind of a shame, but I guess I understand it. And this thing, it kind of like took me quite a while to figure out how to actually do this. In the previous models, I was thinking of maybe making it like a fire effigy that he would show to the crowd. But then I kind of felt like, well, I guess it's kind of like a fire effigy, but it's also like hair. So I didn't feel like that quite made sense. Like I was thinking maybe this guy had like, yeah, like some mask or something like that. I don't know. I just didn't feel like it made sense, honestly. So kind of like moved away from that idea. But I was trying to like find in the community a decapitated head, and this is like one of them. But the issue is with like by importing this decapitated head, I just wasn't able to move it around, you know? I'm not really sure why HeroForge does not support decapitated heads anymore. I mean, what if I want to like put some heads on a spike, you know? It's like a proper Dracula. The issue is when I try to select the head, it just doesn't work. So it was like kind of an outdated model. And because I was kind of like frustrated, I was thinking like, okay, what am I going to do if I cannot put like a decapitated head? Well, I guess I'm just gonna put like an entire person, you know, that got their limbs cut off and call it a day. But honestly, the reason why I didn't go with this approach is it just looks sad. You know, like when you take a look at this sort of a model, it like all the attention just goes to this model instead of the main model, which it's supposed to be about. And the issue of that is because you are focusing on this model, you kind of focus also on the sad face and stuff, and that just makes the mini sad. If you're showing off a body with partially cut off limbs, you know, that's a tragedy. But when you're showing off just a head, it becomes a celebration because the focus becomes this person, not this person. And lastly, I also want to show off Mortim. So Morton is supposed to be like a sort of a clumsy assistant that's getting like way too much work on his shoulders, and things are kind of like falling apart as he puts like pressure on himself to do well and stuff. So we're kind of in like a pretty comedic scene where Mortim is like carrying some books, you know, and some of the books fell off. And even though it really just makes no sense, you know, he's trying to pick up the books in this way. I guess it's just kind of like an instinct, like trying to pick them up, even though it's just gonna make things worse and make things fall from him. I also decided to give him like a sword sheath, but without any sword, because I just kind of imagined that wherever he was rushing, he completely forgot about the sword, which sounds pretty important. And I don't know, I kind of wanted also the book to look a little bit ominous, so there's like a red light glow, you know? And we also have like a slight red light on Morton here, just to kind of like make him look even more flustered. I'm particularly proud in this model with the teardrop emoji. It's essentially just like it's a teardrop earring, but you can add to the models. But I just kind of reimagined it as the anime sweaty beat. I also have like a bunch of more of Lionsheart's Guild minis, some of which I already reworked, so we're gonna meet those characters later, and some of those characters have not been reworked yet, so I think it's kind of pointless to show them off if I'm gonna be reworking them later. I guess that's about it. I hope the topic wasn't too heavy, and I hope that whatever's going on in your life, that it's gonna go well. Um, I'm not sure how things are gonna go in my life, but whatever is gonna come, I think I'll be able to handle it better. All right. Thank you so much for watching. Take care and bye bye.